Lily Langford didn't notice. She was too busy. It was 6:07 p.m., and the pediatric oncology ward was transitioning into the night shift chaos. Lily had a gift. She could make a terrified child smile in the middle of their darkest night. It was why she became a nurse. It was why she had worked 2 jobs for 6 years to pay for a degree that a mysterious, anonymous scholarship had ultimately covered in full. She never knew who her benefactor was. She just knew they had saved her life. She swiped her badge at the locker room. She expected to see her extra scrubs and a photo of her late mother. Instead, she saw a thick, official envelope. Her fingers shook as she tore it open. Termination notice. Effective immediately. Ethical violations. Accepting pharmaceutical bribes. Falsifying patient records. The words were a death sentence to her career. "This is impossible," she whispered, the paper crinkling in her grip. I would never. Welcome to Danito Stories. If you're returning, thank you. If you're new, you were meant to find us. Subscribe now. Don't skip. Don't rush. The dramatic part is waiting for you. Now let's begin. Lily? Oh my God, what's wrong? Evelyn, her best friend, appeared in the doorway. Lily handed her the letter, unable to speak. Evelyn's face went pale. This is a setup, Lil. Look at these timestamps. They don't even match your shifts. I don't have money for a lawyer, I have nothing. Lily slid down the locker, sitting on the cold floor. I'm alone. I have no one. She was wrong. Across the city, Alexander Ward stood at a floor-to-ceiling window, a tumbler of whiskey forgotten in his hand. His phone sat on the desk behind him, the screen glowing with an alert. Lily Langford. Termination notice issued. Alexander's jaw clenched so hard it ached. For 12 years he had been her shadow. He had funded her dreams, pulled strings to get her the shifts she wanted, and watched her from the back row of her graduation, bursting with a pride he had no right to feel. I want names, Chris, Alexander said. His voice was low, dangerous. Chris, his head of security, stepped into the light. Dr. Julius Blackwell, sir. He signed the complaint. He's been targeting nurses for a prescription fraud ring. Alexander finally turned. At 30, he was the kind of man who graced the covers of business magazines, handsome, wealthy, and utterly cold. But right now, his eyes held a predatory fire. Find out everything, Alexander commanded. And make sure Blackwell understands one thing. No one touches what belongs to me. After Chris left, Alexander opened a locked drawer. Inside was a worn hospital volunteer badge that read Lily L., and a dog-eared copy of The Little Prince. He remembered being 18. Dying. Alone in a private hospital wing. Lily had been a 16-year-old volunteer who sat with him when the pain became unbearable. You don't have to be brave alone, she had whispered to him that night. He'd spent 4 years finding her and 8 more protecting her. He told himself it was gratitude. He was lying. He was obsessed. He was in love with a woman who didn't even know he existed. The next morning, Lily was in the hospital parking garage, carrying a box of her belongings. She was a ghost of herself, eyes red from crying. Everything okay, Lily? She looked up. It was Dr. Julius Blackwell. He was charming, respected, the kind of man people trusted implicitly. I didn't do those things, doctor, she managed to say. I know, he said gently, taking the box from her. You're the best nurse we have. This is a mistake. Meet me for lunch at Artisan at 1 p.m. I have resources. I can help you. Lily felt a surge of hope. Thank you, Dr. Blackwell. Call me Julius, he said, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. What Lily didn't know was that Blackwell had figured out Alexander Ward's connection to her. He wasn't trying to help her. He was using her as bait to keep Alexander from exposing his crimes. At 1 p.m., Artisan was crowded with Houston's elite. Lily felt out of place in her jeans and sweater. Julius was already there, kissing her cheek in a way that made her skin crawl. "I can protect you, Lily," Julius said, his hand covering hers. "You just have to trust me." Before she could respond, the restaurant doors swung open. The air in the room seemed to vanish. Alexander Ward walked in like he owned the building. He actually owned 30% of it. He ignored the hostess and walked straight to their table. Julius went white. "Mr. Ward? I didn't realize you." Alexander's eyes dropped to where Julius was touching Lily. Something dark and possessive flared in his gaze. He looked at Lily and she felt pinned by the intensity. "I don't believe we've been introduced," Alexander said, his voice a low rumble. "Alexander Ward. And you are?" "Lily Langford," she whispered. Alexander extended his hand. When their skin touched, electricity shot up her arm. He held her hand a fraction too long, his thumb brushing her knuckles. "Lily," he repeated, tasting her name. "It's a pleasure to finally meet you." "Finally?" Lily asked, her heart hammering. "Do I know you?" "Not yet," Alexander said, his smile devastating. "But you will." He pulled out a chair and sat without an invitation. He looked at Julius with a sharp, lethal grin. "Tell me, doctor, did you mention to Miss Langford that you were the one who filed the ethics complaint against her?" Lily's breath caught. She looked at Julius. You reported me?" "What evidence, doctor?" Alexander's voice cracked like a whip. "My team has been reviewing the logs for 18 hours. The footage is doctored. The timestamps are fake. So either you're incompetent, or you created the evidence yourself." Julius stood, his mask of concern shattering. "Don't listen to him, Lily. Alexander Ward is a stalker. He's been tracking you for 12 years. Alexander rose slowly, towering over them both. "I've spent 12 years trying to repay a kindness that saved my life. And I think you're a man who ran a prescription ring that killed my sister, Arma." The accusation hung in the air like a guillotine. Alexander pulled out his phone, showing Julius the financial records and email exchanges his team had recovered. "Resign. Withdraw the complaint. Or I press criminal charges tonight," Alexander said quietly. Julius fled the restaurant, his exit bitter and swift. Alexander turned to Lily. His expression softened into something vulnerable. "Why me?" Lily's voice was shaking. "Why would you do all this?" "Because you saw me when I was invisible," Alexander said simply. "That night in the hospital, you didn't know my name or my net worth. You just stayed. You read to me until dawn." He reached into his jacket and pulled out the worn copy of The Little Prince. "You left this behind when they pulled you away from my bed." Lily stared at the book. The memory flooded back. The boy with the dark eyes, the private wing. That was you. The scholarship. The grants. The apartment deposits. "All of it," Alexander admitted. "You've been watching me for 8 years? Protecting you," Alexander corrected, stepping closer. He smelled like cedar and expensive cologne. "And falling more in love with you every single day." Lily should have been terrified. Stalking. Control. Obsession. But looking into his eyes, she felt something warm and certain. "This is crazy," she managed. "Completely," Alexander agreed. "I'm obsessed with you, Lily. I know your coffee order. I know you sleep with a night light because you're afraid of storms. If that makes me a monster, fine. But I'm your monster." The possessiveness in his voice sent heat through her body. "Tell me to leave, Lily," he whispered, his forehead nearly touching hers. "Tell me I've crossed too many lines and I'll disappear. But if there's a chance you feel even a fraction of what I do, tell me now. Because my self-control is hanging by a thread." "What do you feel?" Lily asked. Alexander's eyes darkened. Everything. I want to be the person you call when you can't sleep. I want you to be mine. In every way that matters. People are staring, she whispered. Let them. I'm done hiding. He took her hand. Come with me. Let me show you what 12 years of devotion looks like. They drove to his estate in River Oaks was silent but thick with tension. When they arrived, he led her to a study. Lily stepped inside and froze. The room was filled with photos of her. Her high school graduation. Her nursing ceremony. Candid shots of her laughing with patience. This is 12 years of obsession, Alexander said quietly. Every achievement. Every smile. I was so proud I could barely breathe. Lily touched a photo of her graduation. I looked for my donor that day. I was there, Alexander said. Back row. On the left. Why didn't you say anything? I was terrified, he admitted. People want me for my money. But you gave me kindness when I had nothing. What if you saw me and decided I wasn't worth staying for? Lily crossed to him, placing her hand on his chest. His heart was thundering. Alexander Ward, she said. You are the most intense, overwhelming man I've ever met. But you're also brave enough to let me see the real you. She stretched up on her toes, her lips an inch from his. And I think, I've been waiting for someone to see me the way you do. He kissed her then. It wasn't gentle. It was hunger and desperation and 12 years of wanting finally unleashed. We need to slow down, Alexander gasped, his hands framing her face. If we don't, I'm going to take you against this wall, and you deserve better for our first time. What if I don't want better? Lily challenged. What if I want you to stop being careful? Lily, he groaned. You're killing me. He lifted her onto the desk, sweeping aside papers. His hands were hot against her skin. Tell me to stop, he demanded. Don't you dare tell me you want this unless you mean it. I want you, Alexander. All of you. He made a sound like a man breaking. But then he stopped. He pulled back, leaving her disheveled and aching. Not like this, he said, his voice wrecked. Not when you still have questions. When I have you, Lily, and I will have you. I want you absolutely. Because once you're mine, I'm never letting go. The next morning the world exploded. Chris appeared at 7 a.m. Blackwell filed a restraining order on Lily's behalf. He's claiming you're manipulating her. It's all over the news. Alexander rushed to the TV. Billionaire's 12-year obsession. The photos from his study were on the screen, but they looked like stalking instead of devotion. He's in her apartment right now, Chris said, showing the security feed. He's planting evidence. Lily came into the room, her face pale as she looked at the TV. Is it true? All of it? I've been watching over you, Alexander said quietly. Watching over or watching? Lily's voice cracked. On the news it looks like control. You took away my choice, Alexander. You decided what I needed. How do I know any of my achievements are real? You earned every single thing, Alexander said fiercely. I need to go, Lily said, grabbing her purse. I'm not your salvation, Alexander. I don't even know if the me I've become is real or something you created. She left, and Alexander felt like his chest had been carved open. But Blackwell had made a mistake. He'd paid off Lily's best friend Evelyn to get the keys. He was distracting Alexander so he could move his drug shipments. Lily burst into her apartment and found Julius Blackwell on her couch. I came to help, he said, spreading folders of fabricated evidence. Ward has been using you. Your pediatric wing has been a testing ground for experimental drugs. You're not his love story, Lily. You're his access point. Get out, Lily whispered. He killed his own sister, Lily, Julius lied. He's just atoning for it through you. You're a project. After he left, Lily's phone buzzed. A text from Alexander. Don't trust him. I love you. That's the only truth that matters. Lily called Evelyn. Did he pay you? Silence. Then sobbing. My student loans, Lily? I was drowning. He said he just wanted to help your case. Lily hung up. She was alone. If you're feeling this story, hype it so others can find it. Comment where you're watching from now. Back to the story. She sent a text to Alexander. One chance. Tell me everything. Meet me at the hospital memorial garden in 1 hour. Alexander arrived early. The garden was dedicated to his sister, Arama. When Lily arrived, she looked young, vulnerable, and furious. Tell me about Arama, she said. Alexander sat on a bench, looking exhausted. She was my sister. I was so focused on being an innovator that I didn't see what our drugs were doing. She got addicted. She overdosed 5 years ago. I never got to tell her I was sorry. Is that why you found me? No, Alexander said fiercely. You reminded me of hope. You showed me goodness still existed. I thought if I could find you, I could build something good from the wreckage. He took her hand. Somewhere along the way, I fell irrevocably in love with the real you. The stubborn, brave, kind woman. Julius said you were using my hospital for trials, Lily said. Fabricated. I have a full disclosure package for the DA. Complete transparency, Alexander promised. I want you to choose me. Not because I manipulated you, but because you see exactly who I am. Before she could answer, his phone buzzed. A text from Julius. I've filed the evidence. You have 1 hour to give a statement against Ward or you're a co-conspirator. He's framing me for Arama's murder now, Alexander said grimly. We need the police, Lily said. They won't believe us yet. He's built a narrative where I'm the villain. He wants to isolate you, Lily. Chris called. Police are heading to your location. Anonymous tip says you're holding Lily against her will. It's a trap, Alexander said. Do you trust me? Lily looked at the man who'd loved her from the shadows for 12 years. Yes, she said. I trust you. They ran to the hospital's administrative wing. Alexander had a microscopic camera attached to Lily's necklace. He's expecting you alone and terrified, Alexander told her. He's not expecting a live stream from the Attorney General. Lily entered Julius's office. He looked relaxed, triumphant. Lily, I'm so glad you came. Sit. You've been lying to me, Lily said, staying on her feet. I've been trying to save you, Julius corrected. Ward killed his sister. He's been using you. You deserve someone who sees you as an equal. Someone like me. Someone who runs a prescription fraud scheme? Lily asked. Julius laughed. I perfected the distribution. I made sure Arama's overdose looked accidental. Alexander has spent 5 years believing he killed her. I eliminated a liability. Just like I'm about to eliminate her brother. He reached out to touch her face. And if you refuse to testify? I have enough fabricated evidence to bury you for a decade. The office door slammed open. Alexander stood there looking lethal. You touched her, he said, his voice deadly calm. Every word you said was recorded. Confession to murder, fraud, and blackmail. 43,000 people are watching the live feed right now. Julius went white. He grabbed for Lily, but Alexander was faster. He slammed Julius against the wall, his forearm against the doctor's throat. You wanted to know what obsession looks like? Alexander's voice was cold fury. This is it. You threaten what's mine. Now you lose everything. Police burst in. Julius Blackwell was arrested for conspiracy to commit murder and a dozen other charges. Alexander pulled Lily into his arms. You're safe. I've got you. 3 months later, the Pediatric Oncology Center was newly renovated and named after Arma. Lily was promoted to head nurse, merit-based as she'd insisted. That evening, Alexander picked her up in his Aston Martin. He kissed her before she could even buckle her seatbelt. "I've been thinking about the wedding," he said. "I know we agreed on 6 months, but I want it tomorrow." "How soon?" Lily laughed. "Next month. Next week. I don't care. I just want you to be my wife. Irrevocably mine." "Mr. Ward, are you obsessed with me?" Lily asked softly. "Is that even a question?" "I am desperately, obsessively in love with you." "Then yes," she said. "Next month." The wedding was a garden ceremony. Lily walked down the aisle toward Alexander. He was in a tuxedo, his eyes bright with tears. "You came?" he whispered as she reached him. "I'll always come," she whispered back. "You don't have to be brave alone anymore." 5 years later, Alexander was in the pediatric center, reading The Little Prince to a room full of children. His daughter sat in his lap. "Daddy, tell them the story about how you met Mommy." Alexander looked at Lily. She smiled. "Well," he said, "it started 12 years before you were born. I was very sick, and a girl with a kind heart sat with me, and I fell in love with her that night." He pulled Lily close. "And she's the best thing that ever happened to me." As they left the hospital, the sun was setting over the city. "Any regrets?" he asked, taking her hand. "Not a single one," Lily said. The boy who had been invisible had found his home. The girl who had shown kindness had found her guardian. And together they were finally truly home. What would you rate this story? Drop 0 to 10 in the comments right now. If this story moved you, hit the subscribe button for more emotional journeys every day. And if it truly touched your heart, consider leaving a super thanks. Your support helps us create more stories like this. Every contribution, big or small, means a lot. Ready for the next story? It's even more dramatic than this. Click now. Thank you for being part of this journey.